January 1854, Henrico County, Virginia. A midwife places a newborn in his mother's arms, healthy, heavy, dark-haired. Then the doctor sees the right hand and goes still. 6 fingers, fully formed, functional. In the doorway, 3 men, each claiming to be the father, stare at that extra digit like it's a verdict. And in a way, it is. Because the baby's mother is a woman with skin white as bone and eyes pale as dawn. A woman bought at a New Orleans slave auction and forced to be the wife of 3 brothers at once. The child who was supposed to secure their fortune instead becomes the key that unlocks a conspiracy of greed, fraud, and ruin. If you love dark history, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Now let's go back to where this curse began. 1852, the will. The Rutland plantation sprawled over 800 acres outside Richmond. Tobacco, old oaks, and a 3-story house with white columns that gleamed like teeth in summer. When patriarch Josiah Rutland dropped dead in the fields on April 3, 1852, he left the estate to his sons, Samuel, 34, rigid and commanding, Thomas, 31, the anxious bookkeeper, and William, 28, a wavering seminarian with hairline cracks in his faith. Their attorney, Chester Haverford, read the will in Josiah's tobacco-scented study. The estate would pass to the sons on one condition. They must preserve the purity of the Rutland bloodline through a union, singular in nature, unusual in practice, and produce an heir within 3 years. Singular, but unusual. Haverford explained the interpretation he wanted them to hear. One legal marriage, but a shared private arrangement, so the property could never be divided. Refuse, and the entire estate would be sold, proceeds gifted to the Virginia Agricultural Society. Each son would get a pittance. It was obscene. It was impossible. It was also, given the numbers, unavoidable. September 1852. The purchase Haverford whispered about an auction in New Orleans that specialized in the rare. The brothers went. In a cordoned corner stood a young woman like snow in shadow, Clara, an albino with hair like spider silk and eyes the faintest pink. The auctioneer, Duchamp, called her delicate, skilled in housework, unsuited to fields. Bidding climbed. At $4,000, the room fell silent. Sold to the Virginia gentleman. Back at the plantation, the terms were read to Clara like a contract she didn't write. Publicly, Mrs. Samuel Rutland. Privately, the wife of all 3. Rotate nights. Produce an heir. Smile in public. Obey in private. "Do you understand?" Samuel asked. "Yes, sir," she said. On September 16th, under the dim lamps of Richmond's 2nd Presbyterian, they married. The guests whispered about her eerie beauty. The pastor noticed the bride never once looked at the groom. 1,853 to 54. The heir. For 8 months, Clara moved through the house like a ghost, rotating rooms at night, managing the household by day, learning names the brothers had never bothered to learn. She began to read from Thomas's library and ask questions he didn't like. In May 1853, she missed her courses. By June, the doctor confirmed it. She was pregnant. The brothers toasted with bourbon. Haverford noted the success. The plan, it seemed, was working. On January 9th, 1854, Clara delivered a son, Josiah, named for his grandfather. Perfect, except for the right hand, polydactyly, 6 fingers, complete with nail and knuckle. "It's harmless and often hereditary," the doctor said. "It's a mark," William whispered. "It's our heir," Clara answered, steady as iron. The brothers argued for days, surgery, secrecy, paternity. Haverford's ruling, the will required an heir, not a flawless one. Register the birth, move on, and pray no one asks about anything else. Clara stopped rotating rooms. No one insisted. 1854 to 55. The counter move. Clara changed. The glassy compliance dried up. She learned the books. She read the law. She asked what would happen to her and the child if the brothers died or the money vanished. Quietly, she began writing letters, burning each one after reading. The letters went to Martin Rutledge, Josiah's estranged brother in North Carolina. Martin had opinions about the will and money enough to test them. In October 1854, Martin's attorney, Silas Corbett, arrived with allegations. Haverford's fees were swollen. His ledger showed estate management withdrawals totaling $11,000 in just 18 months. And worse, whispers that Josiah had been hale until Haverford began delivering his meals that final spring. "Work with Martin to expose this," Corbett said, "and he'll keep the plantation in the family, properly divided. Refuse, and he'd challenge the will tomorrow." The brothers tore through the ledgers. A pattern emerged, tiny bites that, together, made a wound. "We need the original will," Samuel said. "It's in Haverford's safe," Thomas whispered. They confronted Clara. Had she been writing to Martin? "I've been seeking legal advice," she said, "because unlike you, I have no rights. If you all die, I'm for sale again. My son taken. I owe you nothing but the truth, the hollow fortune." Before they could decide, Haverford walked into the study with a face like ash. He hadn't been stealing, he insisted. He'd been plugging holes. Josiah had gambled fortunes on railroads and cotton. The plantation was mortgaged to the rafters, $37,000 owed. The inheritance was a facade standing on loans and prayer. If Martin subpoenaed bank records, he'd see the truth and walk away, leaving banks to devour what remained. The only path forward was grim and simple. Work together, restructure, negotiate, keep the fields moving, give Clara real protections, trust for the boy, legal claims, and an end to the bedroom rotation. Clara listened, then named her price, $5,000 in a trust for Josiah, untouchable. Legal title to the West Wing. 1/3 of whatever remained if any brother died. Haverford removed from control. Thomas to manage finances with her independent attorney, Daniel Thorne. And the marital rotation ends. Forever. Samuel agreed. He had no choice. The leverage was hers. 1855 to 56. The rescue. That summer scorched the tobacco. Then storms flattened what survived. The banks circled. Samuel proposed selling people to make the notes. William balked, drunk and shaking, threatening to confess everything to the church and magistrate. Clara offered a third way. She would become creditor, not property. Borrow against the trust and her legal claim, with Martin as co-signer, trading him 10% of profits for 5 years. An unconventional deal, but one bankers might accept from a woman safeguarding her son's future. 2 days of meetings later, Clara came home with $25,000 in bank drafts and a small, satisfied smile. The balance of power shifted permanently. 1857. Exposure. William disappeared on August 9th, 1857, leaving a letter the next morning. He'd confessed everything to the Richmond Presbytery and handed over copies of the books. The Richmond Inquirer soon carried the headline, "Esteemed Attorney Questioned in Estate Fraud Allegation." Magistrate Cornelius Vaughan took 6 weeks to pull the threads. The result shocked everyone. The will was genuine and properly witnessed. But Haverford had perverted its meaning, turning abrasive symbolic language about unity into a grotesque, literal mandate. He was charged with fraud and embezzlement, disbarred, fined $12,000, and sentenced to 3 years. He died of apoplexy halfway through. The brothers weren't charged, but society did what courts did not. It exiled them. Buyers shunned their tobacco. Invitations stopped. The Rutledge name curdled into a byword. Thomas drank himself under. In January 1858, Ruth found him dead in bed. Heart failure, the doctor said. Everyone knew better. Samuel tried to hold the line. The numbers didn't care. 1,858. The end of the house. On a cold evening in March, Samuel told Clara the truth. The plantation would be auctioned. Her trust would likely survive. Beyond that, scraps. "Did your father love your mother?" she asked. Samuel stared at the window. "He loved legacy. I learned the same disease." On April 20th, 1858, the sale bell tolled. Land, barns, furniture, and 37 human beings went under the hammer. The house fetched $12,000. After banks ate their share, Clara received $4,300, the West Wing furnishings and, thanks to Daniel Thorne, formal freedom for herself and her son. Samuel drifted toward rumor and oblivion. William was never seen again. Clara left Virginia in May 1858, taking Josiah and Ruth, whom she purchased and freed with $500 of her settlement, to Philadelphia. Quakers helped them start over. She opened a fabric and notion shop. She never married again. Josiah's sixth finger made him preternaturally good with tiny tools. He became a jeweler known for work, so intricate others couldn't match it. He married a Boston teacher, had 3 children, never looked back. Clara died in 1873, 62 years old. Before the end, she told Josiah everything. He burned her journal to keep their children safe, but copied her last entry into his own. "They bought me to preserve their bloodline and save their name. I outlived them. My son bears 6 fingers and no shame. We are free. They are dust. Some inheritances are curses. Some bloodlines deserve to end." In 1861, merchants bought the old Rutland land and razed the house for war use. After, the property changed hands until even the soil seemed to refuse tobacco. By 1870, all that remained of the Rutledges were a few yellowing papers in a courthouse basement. One more family tragedy filing itself away. 3 brothers tried to turn a woman into a contract. Instead, she became their creditor and their judge. Did we uncover everything buried in Henrico's fields, or are there secrets still sleeping under that red clay? Like, subscribe, and drop a comment if you want more true dark histories like this.